Global Namaste and a very beauteous morning to each and every one of you. On behalf of the India Business Group Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the special fire chat today. Before we go ahead, please allow me to introduce India Business Group Chamber of Commerce to all those who've joined us today. And to the family of IBG, thank you very much for being here with us. My name is Simran Ahuja, and I'm truly honored and blessed to be a part of the India Business Group Chamber of Commerce, which is a modern non-profit chamber of commerce focused on mentoring and supporting Indian businesses to help them grow into global corporations. India Business Group was founded by Mr. Vikash Mittersain, who's currently the chairman and managing director of Nazara Technologies and the Honorary Consul General of the Republic of Mali. India Business Group has a network of over 80,000 active members in Mumbai alone, pertaining to sectors like finance, legal,
Simran, you
sure, I'm sorry. IBG has a network of over 80,000 with over 1,000 active members in Mumbai alone, pertaining to sectors like finance, legal, marketing, media, manufacturing, banking, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, etc. IBG engages also with international and domestic chambers and arranges one-to-one business meetings with the chambers, members, potential companies, identifies potential partners for the strategic alliances, etc., for their members. And I must congratulate all of you, all the beautiful family of IBG, and all our guests who were with us last Thursday for really an amazing B2B meet with the Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and IBG. And I think it was absolutely amazing with people meeting. Their definitely business to business collaborations happening live in this 1 hour sessions. That was absolutely brilliant. Please be connected with us. For all those who joined us for the first time, make sure you please leave your email ID and your contact details in the chat box so we could connect with you and definitely let you know of the future and the further webinars as well. A humble request before we go ahead and introduce our very dynamic young speakers here today. I'm going to request all of you to kindly have your audios on mute throughout, and a humble request for all of you to please have your videos off as well. And we're going to have our videos on towards the end when I'm going to request you all for a photo op that is towards the end. But for now, I'm going to please once again request all of you to kindly be on mute as well as your videos off.
But let Anupam and Nitish's videos be on.
Yes,
People
of
need
course.
to see them.
Of course. And from that perspective, okay, so let me just clearly mention all the names. So can we please request Mr. Anupam Mittal, Mr. Nitish Mittersain, Mr. Vikash Mittersain, and Ms. Priya Pansare for the videos to be on. We want all your videos on, please. And of course, Girish and Siddhi, who are everything with us. So I really want you all to have the videos on. And now, before I introduce the dynamic speakers, I'm going to request Mr. Vikash Mittersain, the Chairman and Managing Director of Nazara Technologies, also the author of brilliant books, You the CEO, You the Leader, and My Post on Facebook. He's also a very young at heart. We're doing great shows as a radio jockey. And of course, the founder of IBG. A humble request to you, Vikash, to please go ahead and address everyone this morning.
So thank you, Simran. We've been doing a lot of webinars since we locked down, but this one is close to home. I have my son here, and then I've got also Anupam, who is a close friend. Let me tell you, both these guys are absolute stars in the mobile, originally VAS business, and then they moved on to many more things. You guys, everybody here is very lucky to have them to fire away as many questions as you can think. I don't mind even overflowing the time if it happens. Thank you very much and welcome.
That's really kind of you. Thank you very much, Vikash. And I want to request our CEO, Ms. Priya Pansare, to please address everyone. And Priya, it's absolutely, absolutely amazing the way you coordinate and do everything with IBG. We are so delighted to really be in touch with you for any information whatsoever. May we please request Priya to please go ahead.
Mute. She's on mute.
Good morning, everyone. Special welcome to Nitish and Anupam on IBG's platform today. I'm not going to take much time over here. Let's start with the session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Priya. Thank you for your kind words. And I'm also going to take this opportunity of thanking our lovely crew of IBG, Girish and Siddhi, for taking this forward. And now I'm so delighted to introduce our very young and dynamic, as Vikas already mentioned, they are the stars for us. So we're truly delighted to really welcome both of them here. So please allow me to introduce them. And I'm going to request you all to please have your questions in the chat box as and when you feel like asking a question. And we definitely get the answers once they finish their speech. So this is going to be a very interesting fire chat where we're going to really learn and, of course, make sure that we really fulfill our visions and make it come into a reality. So please allow me to introduce to all of you the founder and CEO, Mr. Anupam Mittal. Anupam started his entrepreneurial journey by founding people such as Shadi.com, Makan.com, and Moj Mobile. Well, इनका जो people group है, जिनके ये founder है, I really must say that you must definitely go on the net and find out more about this. It's completely impressive. Today, the group is recognized as one of the most innovative enterprises in the country. Besides his operational role, Anupam is also very active angel investor with over 100 investments, such as the Big Basket, Interactive Avenues, Ola Cabs, Truva, Fab Hotels, and others. Anupam Mittal has been voted by the Business Week as one of India's 50 most influential people in India and awarded Outstanding Serial Entrepreneur and Angel Investor by TIE in Jan 2020. We are truly delighted to welcome Anupam Mittal. And before I request him to speak to everyone and address everyone and have his great presentation, I'm also going to take this opportunity of introducing yet another star. May we please request founder and MD Nazara Technologies to wave to everyone, Mr. Nitish Mittersain, the founder and MD Nazara Technologies Limited. Hailing from a textile business family, Nitish was hooked to interactive gaming at the mere age of 7 when he coded his first game. He then went on to step his own bulletin board service at 14, followed by Nazara at the age of 19. Since then, the Nazara Group has really been over 2 decades to emerge as India's leading gaming companies with operations over 70 countries and has acquired and invested in over 15 companies in various sectors in gaming, including, exports, fantasy sports, and of course, all the premium games, etc. Nitish has also been recently graced with the Business World Disrupt 40 Under 40 Achievers Awards and has also been selected for the Fortune India 40 Under 40 2019. When not at work, Nitish likes to relax and play a range of woodwind instruments such as, several instruments including the saxophone. He's also a trustee of the Dr. B.K. Goyal Heart Foundation and the Dhanvantri Foundation. Truly delighted to have with us two great entrepreneurs, very young, dynamic, and of course, they are here to win our hearts. May we please request Anupam Mittal to start and later have the interesting fire chat with Nitish Mittersain. Over to you, Anupam. A wholehearty welcome to you and a global namaste.
Namaste and thank you so much. I just wanted to start by thanking you for hosting this first of all. Very nice of you, Simran, to take the time. And then Mr. Mittersain, thank you for doing this. Nice to be here. And everybody at IBG, thanks for putting it together and all the participants. It's a busy time for everyone. So you taking the time to listen to us, I guess, is very welcome. Thank you. Nitish, I'll turn it over to you, I guess, because you'll be firing some questions at me and hopefully I can do the same to you. So let me turn it over to you and see what you have.
Sorry, I was on mute, I think. Uh, Thanks for joining in, Anupam. Let's start with Anupam. I think we know each other since 2005, maybe the last 15 years.
Yeah,
And
perhaps.
and for most of that period, we've been competitors. But more importantly, we are good friends with great mutual respect as well. Do you think you've seen so many entrepreneurs? Do you think that's a very common trait where people can compete fiercely, yet at a personal level remain friends and have great mutual respect for each other? Or is that something you don't see too often?
Yeah, great question. I haven't actually thought about it that deeply, but as you throw it at me, I'm contemplating. And I think it's, if I had to react, I think times are changing. And I think there used to be a time when people took competition more personally and perhaps didn't actually, weren't very friendly to people they competed with. But I think over time, we're seeing that that's changed. I think today, particularly in tech entrepreneurship, I find that many of the old rules don't apply. People are more, have more perspective about these things. And when you think about it, as I'm thinking about many of the people that I know in the tech entrepreneurial circles, who at some level are competition, but at another level are friends. I think people have begun to look past that, uh, especially when you think about it, right? In tech these days, everybody is competing with everyone, right? So, e-commerce is getting into fintech, and fintech is getting into health tech, and health tech is getting into, ed tech. And so if you start holding personal animosity towards your peers, you pretty much won't have any friends left. So I think perhaps it's just necessity, but I do believe times have changed. Coming to you and I think uh, given the history we have, to be honest with you, it's yesterday when we had a first, or when we had a quick chat on the phone, that I even realized that we've been competitors, right? You mentioned in passing that, look, you and I both have so much respect for each other, even though we are competitors. That's the first time it hit me that we have actually been competitors, right? Uh, Perhaps because, we look past that, and as you rightly said, we have more respect and admiration than the actual competitive spirit that underlies our relationship.
So, Anupam, I got into the gaming world, when I started coding games at 7. And that's been a passion for me, for the last 30 odd years. What's your story? What was your background? What got you into tech? What got you as an entrepreneur started? Can you share some of that?
You want the long version or the short version?
Long is fine.
Okay, so this is a bit of a life story question.
Yeah.
So let me start with what my motivations have been from very early on, and I suspect it was similar for you. But I grew up in a business family, and so was always predestined to really run a business, and tried working with my dad early on, and that wasn't going to work because he had very specific ideas about how he did things. And I think what I realized very early on that his business was really his identity. There was very little differentiation between the two because traditionally Marwari businesses were run more like, very close to who you are and not as professionally run companies. And so I realized that, look, to make room for myself in this sort of setup would be very difficult. But I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur somewhere deep down because really I never explored anything else. So I didn't even know something else existed. So I'd say in my teens, I tried a few different businesses. One was setting up something for interior designers. One was exporting made-ups to Germany. And I lost a lot of money and, a lot in terms of relatively speaking. For those times, it seemed like a lot of money. And when you're young and brash, you tend to sort of blame other things. And so it was with me. And I said, look, this is all India's fault because nothing can be set up here. And so I said, I must get an education overseas. And that's when I left for the US. And while I was in the US studying, the consumer internet space, this was sort of in the mid 90s, was just taking off, right? 25 years back. And everybody, this was a big thing called the internet. And Netscape Navigator, the first web browser, most of the audience here, I'm sure you know, Nitish, but most of the audience here would not even have heard of it. It was the first internet company to actually go public. And everybody, it was a defining moment for people who were just entering their careers at that point. So I was very influenced by it. And I then joined a company in a similar space. During the dot-com boom days, we went from $100 million market cap to $40 billion in 2 years. It was truly riveting. I grew through the ranks, and we were renting out football stadiums to have our company parties and inviting the Texas cheerleaders to sort of have, to have parties. And it was quite a heady time, I must say. I think during that time, I learned a lot about running tech businesses and managing people. And then the dot-com implosion happened in 2000. And fortunately for me at that time, I had set up a small operation in India. I don't know if you remember, Nitish, you were probably very young too, but at that point, an engineer in India costed about 7,000-8,000 rupees. And a designer costed about 5,000-6,000 rupees. And I was making like a six-figure salary in the US, so it didn't really matter. I had a bunch of people. And it was an experiment. They were working, building some stuff, building something, one day building something else the other day. My cousin Anand joined me as a co-founder, was very technically savvy, and he kind of helped steer some things as well. During that time, I happened to come to India for a couple of months. And, as luck would have it, and you understand this because you're from, Marwadi family as well. And as luck would have it, I was sitting at my dad's office, and this gentleman posing as my dad's friend came to see me because I was sort of this US return guy who had just come, and started asking me all these interesting questions. And it very, shortly dawned on me that this guy wasn't my dad's friend, but he was a matchmaker, one of those traditional guys who went around matchmaking, and he saw me as really a honeypot that he could monetize. And so he started, firing all these questions at me. But quickly I realized that, how would this guy matchmake me? So I asked him, I said, how many people do you really know? How many families do you know? And he said, about 100, 200. And I said, how many biodatas, that's what they were called at that point, are in your bag? He said, I've brought about 25, 30 for you. And I was really, surprised. I said, so my choice of a life partner is limited by how much weight you can carry and how many families you know. And he looked pretty stumped, and he didn't know sort of how to respond to that. And but one thing led to another. And because I was very influenced by consumer internet, my engineers needed something to do. And this man was sitting right in front of me. I said, look, why don't you go get me all the biodatas that you can? Let's put it on the internet. And that way, nobody has to be limited by the amount of weight you can carry, and we can all find a life partner wherever they might be. So he obviously looked really scared. I never saw him after that. But the idea was born. And so we told the engineers, hey, can you guys put up a matchmaking website? And they did that. And that's how Shadi.com was born. And subsequently, the internet really wasn't growing, as you know, in India for the next 10 years or for the next 10 years, there was barely 10% growth as far as internet usage in India was concerned. So we were forced to look at other avenues for growth. And then we did Moj Mobile, which was, a competitor to Nazara for many years. And then we launched Makan.com. At some point, I started sort of angel investing. And that's kind of the journey that brings us to the present.
Fantastic. Tell me, did you ever use Shadi.com for yourself?
Because
I know you were a bachelor for a very long period of time before you finally jumped in.
Yeah. I used to always, when I was a bachelor, people used to ask me that question that, how come you're single since you run Shadi.com? And my response used to always be, I don't want to compete with my customers. Uh, but truth be told, when I started, and you know this journey, right, Nitish, building a startup in India, particularly in the internet space, when there are no internet users, is really, really hard. So I think for me, I had just taken it so personally and so passionately that I never saw beyond that for the first sort of, I'd say, 10 years. And so I never really used Shali.com to find a life partner because it was very clear that I wasn't looking, uh, and I also felt that once I got married, then I wouldn't identify with the business. I wouldn't be that good a business manager. But no, at some point I ended up meeting my wife Achal through a couple of friends. And as I always say to all the people who work at Shali.com, God is our biggest enemy, or our biggest competition rather, right? Because when he designs two people to meet, we don't really make money off that transaction. So was the case with me and Achal. And I didn't actually have to use my own services.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a bit more on the actual business of matchmaking or matrimony in India on the digital side? How is that growing? What are the opportunities and challenges you see as you stand today?
Yeah, that's actually really, I'm going to paint actually a slightly broader canvas, if you let me, Nitish.
Sure.
Because I want to set some context here, which is very, very important to understand for the participants and for this business of matchmaking particularly. I think if you look at historically the way India is, right, for us in our country, marriage is always a when question. It's not an if question, right? What do I mean by that? If you look at the West, right, what is marriage? Two people meet each other. There's some chemistry happens. They fall in love and they get married, right? Some are actively looking out for love. Some just happen to meet somebody and they fall in love, right? And biologically, your clock sort of makes that more important at a certain point. But nobody's telling them that, hey, you're now 23 or 24 or 25, you must find a life partner. In India, traditionally, marriage is a when question. As soon as you hit a certain age, there comes a stage in your life that everybody around you, society, community, family, conditions you to find a life partner during that period, right? So we have the first childhood or adolescent phase, then we have the adulthood, which is घर गृहस्थी जिसको बोलते हैं, right? सबको घर गृहस्थी का stage आता है. And that age is somewhere between 23 to 30 for most people. And as a result, we are all conditioned to find a life partner. Now, juxtapose this point with the fact that workplace ratios in India are extremely lopsided. Most workplaces are male dominated. Dating is not encouraged, right? Most families are not comfortable with their daughters going out on dates and bringing boyfriends home. And so you have a classic situation where you have so much pressure to get married, but opportunities to meet life partners are very few. Now take that one fact. Let's come to the other point. Often people think of marriage even now in India in binaries called arranged marriage or love marriage. Right? Arranged marriage means, some fuzzy notion of, your family finding a life partner. And love marriage means you do it much like the West. Now, we are finding over the last few years that that's actually not true. That's doesn't reflect the reality. The truth that's emerging for India is something we call planned marriage, which is when you hit that stage of marriage, which I spoke about in my first point, which is you're ready to find a life partner, then the family and the person in question collaborate to find a potential life partner. And they do this through family networks, they do this through friends networks, and now increasingly they do it through online matchmaking platforms. And that's where India is moving, right? A lot of people ask the question that, will we not eventually all just move to a dating platform? And nothing could be farther from the truth. All our research indicates that planned marriage is kind of where India is heading. Most matchmaking has already moved there. And platforms such as Shaadi.com have really organized the concept of planned marriage. And so if you look at it from that context, the industry is still very early. There are 20 million people who get married every year. An average person is looking for about 3 years, which means at any given time, there's about 60 to 70 million people looking for a potential life partner. God is maybe kind to 20% of them when they happen to stumble upon somebody while walking out the door, fall in love and get married. But for 80% of the cases, platforms such as Shaadi.com are going to enable finding a life partner. So we think it's just started. The internet in India, as I always keep saying, is only 3 years old, okay? It's not 20 years old. Geo triggered the internet adoption and usage that we're seeing. So for your business, gaming particularly, and I know in the last year you are seeing some incredible momentum, we are seeing that as well. We think this is just the beginning, and a lot of good things are going to come in over the next 10 years.
Fantastic, Anupam. What do you think of this whole rush into geo that happened recently in terms of, investors from all over the world, big name investors from all over the world? Do you think this is indicative of something much larger and beyond geo's success itself?
Well, I'll share my perspective. Would love to hear your view as well on that.
Sure.
Well, I think there's 2-3 things, right? I think one thing is very clear. While the global majors have created a very large presence in India through social media networks, the economic opportunity in India is much beyond online advertising. Right? Online advertising in India is only a $2 billion industry. In the US, that's $100 billion. Right? Now, $2 billion for companies like Google and Facebook, which pretty much own 70-80% of online advertising in India, is really just a pittance. And I think there was a realization for all of them after trying for 2-3 years, particularly if you look at Facebook. They've been attempting through free basics, and they had different names for it at different points, and then they tried WhatsApp Pay and so on and so forth. And so the regulatory hurdles and the on-ground operations of running a business in India does not come naturally to these guys, right? Whether it's Google or whether it's Facebook, the global tech majors. Of course, Amazon has a very different DNA, and therefore you've seen that Amazon's not really made any of these bets. They've pretty much gone on their own and built a very, very large business at the core of India. But for these other guys who operate mostly in a virtual world with very large advertising business, to really create a very large business in India, they had to go beyond sort of advertising. And I think that's kind of where Geo came in, because they realized to go beyond advertising, they would need to tap into the regulatory environment. And then, of course, we had this massive situation with China that's been bubbling over the last few months, even before the pandemic, and then finally hit hard right before the pandemic. And, China obviously became more villainous with the virus originating from China in March. And so it became a lot easier for governments all over the world to take certain positions. And I think that pretty much sealed the fate for many of these companies. If they wanted to be in India, they needed a doorkeeper, if you will. I think Geo plays that role tremendously. And I think more power to Mukesh Ambani and Geo in terms of how they've navigated the entire telecom landscape over the last 3 years. I think that created a big proof, if you will, for these global majors that eventually Geo can replicate the same as far as consumer technology and technology platforms is concerned. And he played another card really well, which is creating a lot of FOMO around raising massive amounts of capital. I think they're masters at that, and I think the timing couldn't have been better. So everything came together. So that's sort of my view. What do you think?
No, I think very similar to you, right? The really Geo is seen as a bridge to the big growing billion people, data users opportunity in India. And like you said, it's not very easy to do business in India or understand from a local level for a lot of these large American companies. So I think it was a great opportunity that they've obviously capitalized very well on. Moving on,
Yeah, how do you
Anupam.
think that'll play though? I mean, do you think they'll have any influence there? The one question that I keep asking, I mean, with
Hmm,
Facebook, I still get it. They own about 10% of the company.
hmm,
And one can see the direct connections between WhatsApp and
yeah, yeah,
GeoPay and ordering groceries online,
yeah,
and that can be
yeah,
very,
yeah,
very disruptive. The
yeah,
question that I still keep asking is, why would a Google take 4% or 5%, and why would
yeah,
many of these other guys take 1% and 0.5%? Do they
yeah,
really
yeah.
have any sort of leverage or influence in the direction of Geo, or are they simply doing a financial arbitrage?
Yeah, no, I really don't think they have, given the way the investments really rolled in, right?
Yeah.
As an outsider, I would imagine they wouldn't have too much leverage in those agreements that they would have signed. It's always a supply demand
Yeah.
situation, right? And when you're especially negotiating with someone who's got such strong hands like Geo, I doubt they will have leverage. Probably a lot of FOMO, but of course these are smart companies. Maybe they just
Yeah.
wanted their share of the pie, and be associated to that ecosystem in some way or other.
Yeah, it would also mean, I think at some point, perhaps the question also became, can we afford not to? Once Facebook committed X amount of money,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure Google and Microsoft were sitting thinking, wow, can we afford
yeah,
not to have a seat around that table, even if it means lesser influence? At least we have
yeah.
some influence, because if Facebook starts to drive this in a certain direction, that pretty much shuts us out,
Hmm.
and we're going to be sort of in deep dodo. So I think maybe some of that was at play. I don't know, but could have been.
Anupam, coming back to your entrepreneurial journey, uh, looking back in the last 2 decades, can you talk about one really euphoric moment that you can remember that made you feel this was all worth it?
Uh, yeah, I think there were many, but I'll point one out because it's also funny. The most important, I think, I remember very clearly because we had a big celebration around it. The first time I raised external capital in 2007 or so from my PE investors, I think it was a very euphoric moment. And since then, I've been paying a heavy price for it. So
that that was going to be my next question. How is your experience, without obviously naming any specific PE, and you raised so
yeah,
many? How
yeah,
is the general experience with private equity in India being as an entrepreneur, and what would you recommend other entrepreneurs on this chat to do or be mindful of?
yeah. Look, I think two, three things to consider. One is, first and foremost, why do you want to raise external capital, right? A lot of businesses don't need external capital, right? And while we think that equity is very cheap because there's no, commitment to pay out, in reality, in India, with all the liquidation preferences and buyback clauses and so on, these are quasi, debt instruments. Although you've not mortgaged a house, which is good, but you should
Hmm,
consider, if you're a businessman trying to raise money. I mean, I'm not saying bury yourself in debt, but you should consider bootstrapping. If you need a
hmm,
little bit of capital, you should consider debt without indebting yourself totally. And only if you believe that uh, raising external capital can create disproportionate value relative to what you would have created had you not raised the external private equity or VC capital, should you consider it, right? The other
hmm,
reason, of course, is that it's going to get very competitive. And if your competitors are going to raise a lot of capital, you're going to have to throw money at the problem too. So unless and until those questions are in the affirmative, or the answers to those questions are in the affirmative, you may consider a very different path to raising capital, or not even raising capital, simply building from internal accruals, which is really customer financing, if you will, which is the best way of financing, if you ask me. I find that a lot of people look at raising capital for vanity, because they can get out there and say they have XYZ VC on their cap table, or because everybody else is doing it. That's a terrible reason to be raising external capital, right? If you had asked me, Anupam, when I was 20 years younger, I would have probably done the same, simply raised capital because it felt like the right thing to do, or because everybody else was doing it, right? I don't think I introspected whether do I really need to or do I really don't need to. I can, and everybody else is doing it, so let's go and do it, right? But today there's so much information available that one should really spend a lot of time studying and understanding from other people whether they need that source of capital, because as soon as you take that source of capital, it comes with a commitment and obligation to exit that particular investor. And in India, journeys are not that rapid, right? It's not 3, 4, 5 years. They're 10, 12-year journeys, and PEs and VCs typically have a 7 to 8 year, 9-year cycle with their funds. And if they've come in 2 years after their fund started, then they've got a 5-year cycle. So, those things have to be kept in mind. Assuming that you've gone the VC route, I think there is still ways to safeguard yourself. I think the agreement is extremely important. You must keep in mind, and you must communicate to the VC as well very clearly that this is your journey as an entrepreneur. Right? See, many people do it because they want to sell a company in 2 years and 3 years and 4 years and 5 years. They know something about an industry and they think they can create some value and exit in a couple of years. And that's fine, right? And that's a very different journey. You go, you raise capital, you flip the company, you make some money, everybody's happy. But if your entrepreneurial journey is more about you and building sustainable organization over a very long period of time, I think it's very important to have that honest conversation with the VC and establish your agreements and your modus, your sort of construct of working together around that, right? So therefore, then you will work on things like, let's say this doesn't work out over the next 7, 8 years, Mr. PE, Mr. VC. What can we build in so that I can still give you an exit so you don't lose money on me, while at the same time I can continue to run my company? So I think these are important conversations to be had upfront, but it comes from clarity of understanding what it is that you want out of your entrepreneurial journey. So that's a very important factor. Once you have that clarity, then you can start to put all these things around.
Understood.
I don't know, what is your way, Nitish? Because I know I'm putting you on the spot here as well, but you've had a similar journey to mine. You've had PEs, and you're sort of mostly going the IPO route. But so would love to hear your views as well.
Sure. So, when we raised capital in 2005, I think we were at a point where I can say, we were coming out of the dot-com crash. We had struggled for a few years. And honestly, the capital did put a new lease of life and, encouragement in giving what we are trying to do another shot, right? Because perhaps struggling at, with low capital for a long time, we were pretty fatigued at that point of time. So there was some benefit that did accrue. And, it's easy in hindsight when you have grown to kind of discredit or, not feel that, there was any value add in terms of raising that capital. So I don't feel such that, at least in our case, we did, the capital we raised was helpful. But I think this was back in 2005. I was much younger. The experience was not there. And the agreements we signed were pretty harsh. Luckily for us, we grew over the years. We managed to give a 40 times return to our investor. So hopefully things are, hunky-dory in that sense. But I think you're absolutely right. You need to be very careful now, especially with the industry having evolved a bit, very careful in terms of why you are raising. And also, if you are raising, what are the terms and conditions that you are agreeing to, while doing that capital raise. So completely agree to what you're saying. Absolutely. From an investment perspective, there's a huge momentum on angel investing over the last few years.
Yeah.
And, in the early years when you got into it, maybe it was just few of the tech pioneers who were doing angel investing, right? And you've gone on to be a, very aggressive angel investor in that sense, or very successful angel investor. Can you share some thoughts on some background on what got you into angel investing? Can you share with us your most well-known story of your, first check to Ola
Yeah.
cabs, and also any advice to, people on this chat who would like to, do angel investing, especially into tech companies?
Yeah. So, sure. Uh, so there are three parts to that question. One, the second part was about my story with Ola Cabs. The third was any advice to potential angel investors.
Hmm.
What was the first part again, Nitish?
What got you started in the
What
angel
got me
investing?
started?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is, I think you will relate to this because you've done a few angel investments
Hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest curses uh, for entrepreneurs, or the bane of our existence is also our blessing is also a curse, right? Our blessing as entrepreneurs is that we are opportunistic. And
Hmm.
that's why we went and kind of identified an opportunity that nobody else saw, and we went and put all our time and energy into it. But that same blessing turns into a curse because as an entrepreneur, you see so many other opportunities because that's how you're built. And you want to do X, Y, Z, everything. But at some point, as you start to get some wisdom, you realize that focus is very important. And so for me, once I realized that, look, I can't do 100 things because, competitive intensity is high in every space. So maybe you can do 2, 3 things at best, or now only one thing really. How do you play on some of the other things that you're seeing play out in the economy, right? If you're very clear that, look, the internet is going to be a force to reckon with in this country, and you can only do 1 or 2 things, what about the 90 other things that are going to happen? Can you somehow bring value to them, help entrepreneurs, put some funding, and make some abnormal returns for yourself? So I think that was really the thinking with which I started angel investing. My first company that I angel invested in was Interactive Avenues, which actually became India's largest digital agency. I ended up owning a very large percentage of the company. In fact, I was the single largest shareholder of that company simply because of the amount of money that I put in. Fortunately for me, it worked out well, and we did very well. We sold the company in 2012, 13. And just prior to that, and I'll now tell you about the story about Ola, a friend of mine introduced me to Bhavish at Ola, who was just starting out. And at that point, it was called Ola Trips, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just a fresh graduate from IIT Bombay. And this is very interesting because I tend to invest in companies where I can relate somewhat to the problem. And so, he started talking about how, there would be this taxi service that you could call and order. And remember, today it's even hard to imagine that. But only until a few years back, we didn't actually have that. In Bombay, you walked out on the street and you hailed a taxi, right? For most of us, you're probably doing a double take thinking, oh, did we really ever hail a taxi? Yes, we all did, only until a few years back, right? And so when he pitched me, when I spoke to him, I just couldn't relate to the problem. I was like, why would you need to call a taxi? Particularly because I live and work in areas where there's always a taxi stand right across from me. So I kind of said, look, this is not a problem. And, Uber had not yet happened, by the way. And this is just a solution looking for a problem. As luck would have it, I happened to be in Delhi shortly thereafter. And I found that taxis were a problem in Delhi. And everybody in Delhi was used to calling a phone number at a taxi stand, local taxi stand, and the taxi used to come. And so I was at somebody's place and I said, look, I'm going XYZ place. I'll just walk out and find a cab. And they said, no. That's not how it works here. You have to dial this number. And I said, what? Okay. And that kind of, came together for me. So when I came back to Bombay, I said, whoa, wait, this could actually be a problem. And so the next couple of weeks, what I started doing is started calling Bhavish's call center just to see how it operated, right? So I'd say, hey, I'd take some fake name and I'd say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I want a taxi here and there, just to test it for myself. And the 2 or 3 times that I called, it was Bhavish who answered the phone every time. So it kind of reminded me of myself when I had started. I used to do the same thing, write all the customer emails. So I figured this guy had the right sensibilities and was thinking about things the right way. And there was a problem waiting to be solved. So I wrote him a check and then he went on to build a very powerful brand and a great business. Coming to the third part of your question, in terms of
Before you move ahead, how about throwing some numbers or multiples
Yeah.
over there to excite if not absolute numbers, at least some multiples in terms of how many times your initial investment did you make over there?
Yeah, it's several thousand times, right? And the reason is because, we wrote him his first check. I came in when the company was valued at, a few crores, right? Not even double digit. And today it is the last valuation. Of course, this was pre-pandemic, so we'll have to see how it plays out. And, I tell everybody that multiples on paper are just multiples on paper, and we shouldn't get too excited about them. The real multiples are when you get cash in bank. So we still have to see. I've still not exited Ola. So when that happens, at that point, maybe I'll share the actual numbers. But last valuation of Ola was obviously $6 billion, as some of us know. So on paper, it's been a tremendous investment. Hopefully this pandemic will be behind us, and then we can say cash in bank as well. It's been a tremendous investment.
Right. Fantastic.
But look, I've had some major wins with Interactive Avenues, with Macan.com, with Ola, and at least 10 other companies that have done tremendously well, exceedingly well. So, and that's cash in bank, right? So overall, on a portfolio basis, even if I don't take Ola on account, the IRR that we've had over the last 12 years in terms of our early stage investing is about 45%, which is pretty good. This is cash in bank. This is not paper returns, right?
Fantastic. And
so I think it's worked out well.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So from that lens, if I have to just kind of offer some input or advice to anybody looking at, looking at doing angel investing, there's 2-3 things I would say, right? One is just keep in mind that angel investing, when we started doing it, was not competitive at all. As you rightly pointed out, Nitish, it was a few early tech entrepreneurs that were doing this. And, all the businesses that came out for angel investment, you pretty much saw everything, so you could pick and choose. Today, that's not the case. All the major VCs have seed stage programs. So you're operating in a highly competitive environment. And most likely, if you don't have a brand as far as angel investment is concerned, you're not going to see a lot of good deals. You'll see what others are not taking, and that's not the lot that you want to pick from. So how do you get into a position to start to see good deals? You join angel networks, you get onto letsventure.com, and that's a shameless plug. I'm on the board of that company. I have to carry out. I'm also an investor there. But the fact is that Let's Venture now facilitates more than 60-70% of early stage deals that happen in this country in some form, way, or fashion. So if you're going to do early stage investing, I recommend you sign up at Let's Venture. To start, at least exploring it and learning about it. Then I recommend that you take some level of play money. You take 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, whatever you can afford, 50 lakhs, and you start investing in companies, and you start investing in a lot of different companies, right? Because the learning cycle is very important. You want to spend the next year, 2 years simply learning about how to pick companies, what to look for, and following other people's footsteps, joining lead syndicates and so on. That's kind of how you learn. And third, maybe, if you have expertise in a certain area, like, enterprise software or, lifestyle businesses or SaaS companies, and maybe you start with sticking to that because you understand that business, you know the pitfalls to look for, and you probably increase your chances of success. So those are the 3 things I'd say. I don't know. You have anything else to add, Nitish, since you're an active angel investor yourself?
Not so active, Anupam. I've done a handful of deals, hoping to learn and emulate more from you soon, or to come for some tuition soon.
Well, I don't know about that. I think Nitish, your company, you've gone and acquired or invested in an enterprise level or company level in at least 12, 13 companies in the last 2 years itself. And obviously, you've done that more at an institutional level in a very formal, structured manner, obviously. And because of the monies at stake, it's probably a lot more deliberate than in my case, where a lot of times we just write 5, 10, 20 lakh checks without doing any diligence. So I think you probably have a lot more valuable lessons to offer on that front. How has it been doing, enterprise investing versus sort of angel investing?
I think our experience there has been great. Last 3 years we invest in about 13 or 14 companies, and a few of them we've acquired majority stakes in. And I think our cumulative acquisition in the last 3 years itself has been in the range of 400 to 500 crores in terms of value, cash come equity, cash come equity.
That's the money that's gone in.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but these companies have done well. 3 of the companies that we acquired at younger stages in the last 3 years have grown into. One company has become the largest esports company in the country with a 90% market share. The other one is a company called Kidopia, which is got apps for young kids. Again, doing phenomenally well. Now at a 200 crore revenue run rate.
Wow.
We have another company which runs the World Cricket Championship with about 40 million people playing the cricket game. So I think we made some good bets. Some of the companies are still, we're working with the managements to grow them.
Is it still early? Is it still early to say how much that 400 crores has translated into?
I think so. It's still early, but we believe, obviously for us, we are not a financial investor, right? We're also building a strategic synergies with these companies. So we are not purely looking at value extrapolation right now, but really how we can build a cumulative business that's stronger. But yeah, it's been a very interesting experience, and we hope to double down on that as we go forward. Anupam, what do you think of since you're talking about our business or my business, what do you think about the opportunity of gaming in India?
I was going to ask you that question. Okay. Well, I actually want to hear that from you, but let me point out 2-3 things that I'm seeing that are very interesting. There are 3-4 categories, and Nitish, you're better at me than this. So if I'm being not getting it right, pardon me and correct me. But the way I see it is there's perhaps 3-4 areas of gaming that are very interesting and monetizable. One, of course, is sort of the large industry that exists, which is console gaming and perhaps intensive PC gaming that exists in the West, in China, in many parts of Europe, which, if I'm not mistaken, is more than 50, 60, 70 billion dollars or 100 billion dollars, right? So it's disgustingly large, and there's a lot of established players in that industry, and that's one part. I don't think that particular industry in India is going to be very extensive. While it'll be intensive, which is there'll be a few million players very, very intensely playing that, and they will contribute perhaps to a decent revenue pie. I don't think, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the world, it's going to be very large anytime soon or ever, right? The second part, which is more interesting, I think, is real money gaming from the Indian context. Now, today, I don't know how large it is, but maybe it is $1 billion or thereabouts. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nitish, maybe $1.5 billion. But I think this is going to be very exciting. And the reason I say this is going to be very exciting is because everybody can do it, right? You don't need a lot of skills to do it. It doesn't take a lot of time. And there is the aspect of hope and aspiration, right? India, I think, is a country of selling products which are discounted, or value products, if you want to call it that, fintech and maybe health tech to a certain extent, and then selling hope and aspirations, right? For our weddings and for education, we will spend any amount of money, whether we can afford it or not. But when it comes to buying a shirt or buying vegetables, we will bargain for half an hour, right? So that's the nature of our people. That's just culturally how we are. So this sells you hope and aspiration. So I think real money gaming also has a lot of sub-segments. You've got the poker, again, smaller base, intense usage, a lot of money to be made. But then you've got sort of the fantasy sports, which Dream 11 has single-handedly created a category around. Larger user base, but perhaps maybe 100 million odd user base, right? Going from the rummy and the pokers, which is maybe 30, 40 million, or maybe even 50 million. Once you go to Ludo and you go to fantasy cricket, maybe that expands to 80, 100 million. But I believe that there's another billion users out there that have still not been tapped into when it comes to real money gaming. And I think that opportunity is going to be very exciting and very interesting. It's going to take many different forms, video led. I think it's going to be very interesting in the next few years. So I think that's a space that I'm looking at, watching out for. The other aspect is, of course, casual gaming, which is driven primarily by advertising and in-app purchases, which is something that I know that you guys are fairly invested in. And I think that's going to be very valuable as well, but more so from a longer term perspective. Because advertising as an industry is still, as I said, very small in India. Eventually, I think it's here to stay, and there'll be a lot of value to be created. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that, Nitish, whether I got it somewhat right and where you think the value lies.
You're bang on, Anupam. I mean, you've been in our business or in the gaming industry yourself, so you get it as much as I do. I think the bigger picture is gaming in its various forms is here to stay. I think we're still in the early days of its evolution. The potential scale up in this 1 billion users is going to be very big, and that's exactly what we at Nazara are very focused on delivering and building value on.
How many gamers do you think there are in India in all of these three categories that I think called out? Can you point that out?
I think cumulatively you're talking about 200 million.
200 million,
including snacky casual gamers, 200 to 250 million.
And how does that sort of break down between sort of the what do you want to call them, intensive or heavy gaming versus RPG versus
casual versus midcore versus hardcore is what we look at. India is largely a casual gaming market because of the absence of PCs and consoles in the past, unlike China and other markets, where that was very prevalent. So most people are mobile first gamers, starting very casual and then progressing. Some games like PUBG have kind of accelerated progression to midcore, faster on mobile in the recent years.
Would you call PUBG midcore or hardcore?
Midcore, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Hardcore is with consoles, you think?
Yeah, a bit more evolved. But you're also seeing now real-time multiplayer games, which are bringing a lot more people into competitive spirit, right? Like our game, the cricket game that we have, World Cricket Championship, today has 40 million people playing every month.
Wow, in India?
In India. And 40 million uniques and competing with each other in real time.
Are you able to monetize that?
Still low. The monetization's not that great because you don't have real money gaming there, and it's more in.
Could you not make it real money gaming?
We've just done that.
There you go.
So we figure. But yeah, overall, very exciting times. Anupam, I think we are running out of time.
Yeah, this could go on forever.
Yeah, we can do it offline. So a few questions, but I'm not sure we'll be able to address these questions right away. Any last message to the audience?
No, I just say thank you for taking time out. I mean, it's always a bet when you dial in to listen to somebody. It could be a bloody waste of your time. So thanks for taking the time. Maybe we should take one or two questions, Nitish. I think it's just fair.
Anupam, you want to quickly scan the chat? There are many questions addressed to you.
Okay.
Maybe you can pick a couple of them which you'd like to answer.
If you don't mind, I can do that. If you allow me, Nitish. And I'll
sure.
them if you don't mind, and I like to shoot them pretty quick. Thank you very much at first to Anupam and Nitish. It was absolutely wondrous, right from the Shadi.com to angel investments to Ola cabs to the gaming world. It was absolutely interesting conversations. Now, Timon wants to know, do you see great exposure in retail e-commerce for concept like B2B to C2P? something never heard or imagined before, where each single retailer will be in competition to Amazon or DMart or Flipkart or any big giants. What is your take on this, please?
Yeah, look, do I see a lot of value in e-commerce and retail? Of course. I mean, India's entire economy is built around commerce or products, right? Most of our economy is centered around, goods for daily consumption. So sure, it's a very large industry and there's a massive shift going from offline to online, which will continue. So that provides the tailwinds for a large industry. But when it comes to defining industries by B2B, B2C and things like that, I don't really understand that kind of language. For me, it is really about what kind of problem are you solving and why should a customer buy from you? I think this forum is too sort of, not conducive to answering those type of questions because I'll have to really get into it with you. So it'd be hard for me to say whether something works because it's B2B to C or C to C to B. So that's my view on that.
Sure. They say everyone now knows Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple. Which tech companies are you following that you feel can be as big or bigger than these companies?
Anupam, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so which company do I think can be bigger than these companies? Well, frankly, I don't know the name of the company, but I know it's being worked upon right now. So you should see it emerging within the next 10 years, and it'll be far bigger than anything we've imagined. And the reason I say it is because the world is now largely digitalized. When everything is digitalized, you get an opportunity to scale beyond levels ever imagined, right? And let me give you a couple of examples. Digitalization has led to the birth and the creation of an auto company, right, in the last 10 years, which is now the most valued automobile company in the world. It was unimaginable many years back. Digitalization has led to a space company, which is now a $50, $60 billion company. Now, let's assume that we figure out the big questions about space. How much can a SpaceX be worth, right? If space becomes your frontier, if on Earth you can create a $1 trillion or $2 trillion company as Apple is today, if the universe is open to you, what kind of scale can you achieve, right? So that's kind of the way to think about it. One other quick point. From digitalization, we are going to fast move to what is called the bioeconomy, right? The bioeconomy is the manipulation of molecular level information to then drive the next economy that we will see. As soon as you're able to do that, we once again start to see and do unimaginable things. Once you're able to manipulate molecular level information and the miniaturization of data and goods and services, I think that again opens up an industry that is unfathomable at this point. So I think I don't think it'll be the guys from the ones that you currently see. I think it'll be a new breed of companies. A couple of them I already mentioned, SpaceX, Tesla, and I think you'll see the birth of a few more in the coming decade.
I have a question, Nitish, which read in the publication yesterday that the mobile games business is likely to cross over $1 billion sales by 2021. I'd like to ask this question from both of you all. Do you agree to this?
It's already larger than that in India.
All right. What is your take on this, Anupam?
Look, I think Nitish and I both agree that in the long term, the mobile gaming industry is going to be pretty significant in India. I think we've always had these excuses that in India, people have Bollywood, they don't need gaming, but I think that's all crap. The problem was we just didn't have the internet. Now we have the internet. You can't build mobile gaming without the internet. So I think now we have the internet and the youth are going to gravitate towards it. I think Nitish's company, Nazara, has learned the hard way over the last 15 years. They're very well positioned to capitalize on this trend. And you're already seeing that. I think they're one of the few companies that's going to build incredible value in this space. So whether the industry is going to be 5 billion, 10 billion, 15 billion, or 20 billion, that's less important.
Sure. All right, and I'm going to definitely know there are a lot of questions, and it's been truly a pretty much interesting interaction. I think we must look forward to more of fire chats. And I'm going to once again request Anupam and Nitish to please be a part of the fire chat once again here at the IBG, since we have a lot of questions, and I know we are much over both the time, but I'm going to take this opportunity of requesting Mr. Vikash Mittersain to please address everyone here at this point of time when we had such great inputs on angel investments and, of course, you know, the digital economy overall. So I'm going to request Vikash to please take over and address everyone. And sincere apologies to everyone where we couldn't really answer your questions, but we will try and mail the questions to them and request them if they could please have their answers. We'll definitely send them to you. Mr. Vikash, can I please request you now to be on? A heartfelt thanks to Anupam and Nitish for being here with us. And I think this is one of its kind and very interactive and some great questions. And everyone's really looking forward to really expanding their horizons and really going overboard, thinking beyond what they could. And thank you for helping us be the best version of ourselves. We still, you know, the same move since the past 5 months with this pandemic, where we are really getting into creativity and innovation. So I'm going to request Mr. Vikash Mittersain to address everyone.
Hi there. So I won't start saying incredible and all those type of words, but that's what we have just seen. Since the clock limits me, allow me to just say two small things. The first one was about return on investment. When Nitish was a kid, I don't remember the age then. On his birthday, we got him something that was available then called Spectrum ZX, seeing his bent of mind towards technology. And the return on investment on that spend is probably 1,000,000 times. That is one point I have to make. The other is, Anupam, I have this ingrained habit of absorbing learning every day from anybody I meet. And again, with you today, I won't talk about Nitish because I know what is there to learn from him. From you, I've learned so much. You know, I hold a Monday morning mentoring session every Monday, and they're always booked 2 or 3 months ahead. So this has been incredible learning again. I always absorb, I see. When I meet a person, I always get to know things that even the other person is not trying to tell me. So thanks a lot. It was a great session. Thank you, Simran.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. We really
Thanks,
enjoyed.
everyone. Thank you, Simran. Thank you for those kind words, Mr. Mittersain. Appreciate it.
Nitish, would you like to say something?
No, it's always a pleasure to be on IBG and meet everyone, and look forward to seeing people in person once the pandemic is over.
It was the first time you've been on the hot seat, you know, with Anupam, and we really had a great time learning from both of you all, from your experiences. So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank Anupam Mittal. Thank you for really spending your time and for your great inputs and for your, you know, expertise that you've shared with all of us. Shall be of great help to all of us. And I'm going to request you right now in front of everyone to please join us once again as per your availability, and we're going to definitely request you to have a session once again with us. I'm going to request everyone to switch on their videos, if you don't mind. You know, the very young talent with us, incredibly awesome, that is Anupam Mittal and Nitish Mittersain, to just have a photo op, because we won't really get to see you guys, you know, very frequent on this platform. So if you allow us just 60 seconds, we'll just go ahead with a group photo op. And I'm going to request you all to please have your audios on mute and to have your videos on just for, you know, few seconds. So we're going to have the countdown. So thank you very much, everyone. On behalf of India Business Group Chamber of Commerce, our humble thanks to Anupam Mittal, the founder and CEO of People Group. Please do go online and learn more about him, and everything that he's mentioned is absolutely, absolutely going to take you into a different world of perceptions, which has already turned into a reality. So go ahead, explore yourself, be the best version of yourself. We are here at IBG, always available. Thank you to Priya Pansare, our CEO, Girish and Siddhi. And we're going to have the last photo up at the countdown of 3. So everyone who's on with their videos, thank you so much for joining us here. For all those who are new, please do connect with us. Send us your email ID and your contact details in the chat box, and we'll be more than happy to be connected with you. Thank you very much, and God bless. We're going to have the photo up 3, 2, and a click. 3, 2. Thank you very much, and wishing you all a great day and a great week ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.